Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Appalachia. Not so quiet. Hey, everybody, I am Hillbilly Phantom, and I'm joined by my lovely wife, Appalachian Shade.
Howdy.
So tonight we went back and forth a lot about exactly what we were going to talk about on this episode, but the lovely Shade had a great idea. She wanted to talk about a missing person. Now, there's a lot of missing persons around Knott County. Well, I'm sure there's a lot more in other counties,
I
but
think there's 5 currently.
5.
5.
But I mean, there's unsolved murders and missing persons, things of that nature in Knott County, just like anywhere else you go. But this one, I don't know, this one kind of sticks out a little bit.
It's odd.
It's very strange. A lot of the information is contradictory. Some of the information that
The
should be
family,
there isn't
yeah,
there anymore. It's really hard to study the case because I guess because it's so old and
just a very limited amount of information was given.
right, not enough records were kept, not enough information was given about it. So, but the lovely Shade is the one who found out about this boy. I think you said you had heard about him before, maybe.
Yeah, that was a news story shared several years ago. I wasn't aware of it until then, though it just kind of died down and was quiet.
Uh, when was this? How old were you? Were you in
Um,
school or something?
well, it was in 2008 when the news kind of the local news WYMT released
So
some
you,
updated information. But in elementary school, my 7th and 8th grade year, I'd kind of heard something about it. I guess I just didn't really listen too much until I seen it later on in life. One of my basketball coaches was an officer at the time that this happened, and he kind of elaborated on it a little bit that he still felt guilt that they weren't able to find him, this missing child. So, but as far as hearing of it before then, I hadn't heard anything about it till 2008 when I seen this news article or news story shared on WYMT.
yeah, we have the news story you're talking about from
Yeah,
WYMT. We might play that,
yeah.
but I don't even remember that. Of course, in 2008, I was just running around being wild.
This happened in 1982, so it was before I was born.
Right, 1982. I was
So
2 years old, so of course I don't remember anything about it. But there wasn't a lot of. I don't think WYMT was around in 1982. I think it was 85 or something.
yeah, 80.
84,
I
85,
think it was 86.
86. I just remember watching it one day. Like. I don't remember there was any kind of big. Oh my God, Hazard's got a news station. I don't remember any kind of big deal about it, but I just remember that all of a sudden, hey, we had local news. We got to hear about things going on. So there were people talking about this even when you were in school. You said your coach talking about it, and well, he was kind of a
Yeah,
part of it.
he just kind of let us know that it still weighed on him really hard,
I'm
and
sure it did.
he kind of felt like he failed this child, and a lot of the state police officers, today even that didn't work on the case feel that they failed this child, and they haven't, and they done the best that they could with the least amount of information that they were given.
Yeah, they didn't have a whole lot to go on. I mean,
It was
it's
very vague detail that they were given.
yeah, that's kind of a tough case to crack
Yeah.
because the information is just so vague and so far in between. It's really hard to pin down exactly what might have happened.
And living in this county for 40 years and knowing the police officers, the state and local sheriff's office deputies that worked in this county, and they give it their all every day. They really do. They're some great people, and I don't think that they would
Yeah.
and not try and find this child.
Yeah,
you
we
know.
have some fantastic
Any
law enforcement in
any
our area.
officers that came out of Post 13 and Hazard and detectives, any that came from the Knott County Sheriff's Department, deputies. I
Yeah,
mean,
we've had some great
amazing,
sheriffs.
amazing officers.
Yeah, and we got
And
some awesome state police. And this case is,
there's no doubt in my mind that they didn't go out there and hunt for this child like they would their
yeah,
own child.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they would all still do that today
Yeah.
because we have some great law enforcement in our area. But like I said, it is extremely difficult to nail down a exact timeline and also what could have possibly transpired. But we did do some research, tried to look into the case as much as we could.
We just want to get it out there, and
Yeah,
maybe he's still out there somewhere.
we're not professionals or anything. We just kind of wanted to talk about it and put the information out there, the information that we could find. But once again, there's not a whole lot to go on. So, but we found a article on the internet. It's on a place called unsolved Appalachia.org, and it's a pretty cool site. It's got all kinds of information and stories about missing people from all over Appalachia, not just Knott County or Kentucky. There's some on there from Virginia, West Virginia, Tennessee, Pennsylvania, I think, Ohio. There's all kinds of missing people to search through on there. But I did find this one after a little bit of searching. I finally did find the story of this little boy who went missing on February the 12th, 1982. And his name was Kelly Jr. Hollan. Or I've actually seen it, Kelly Hollan Jr. But this is saying that his middle name is Junior's. Right there, we're starting off even with his name, confusing information. So, but this was updated on March the 7th of 2024. It says he was only 6 years old when he disappeared from the front yard of his home in Pine Tree Hollow, which is around 5 miles outside of Hindman, Kentucky. And yeah, that's right across the hill over into Mousy.
The Jones Fork area.
Yeah, right there at Jones Fork. You said you've actually been over there, correct?
I have traveled Pine Tree Hollow and with some friends and went back up on the what they call the strip job, mountaintop removal job. That's back in there.
Oh yeah, that's the fun thing to do. That's what we do in Eastern Kentucky.
And
On the weekends, we get on somebody's 4-wheeler and go up into the hills.
it's well off the beaten path. The hollow is, 550 runs along the mouth of that hollow, but it goes in there for several miles, and then you're on the back of the strip job there.
So it's basically like a lot of the hollers.
Yeah,
in
very
Knott
small.
County.
Only blacktop to a certain point, and then it goes to a dirt road, which is broken off and normally washed out. When it rains heavy, the creeks get up. So.
Right, yeah. I'm sure it's really bad now with all the flooding we had over the last few years.
Oh, yeah.
So this place is, it's way back out of the way.
Yeah.
So
it's not a heavily populated little area either. I would say.
Yeah, I'm sure there's not many houses
Yeah.
up on Pine Tree Hollow.
When I went there, I would say maybe 10 people lived in that holler.
Yeah.
Yeah. 10 houses. I'm not sure how many people were in the houses, but let's say about 10 houses, give or take.
Well, I wonder, because you said it goes back in there and goes into a strip job. When was the strip job? Did that happen after this, or was that like
I have no idea.
before the 70s?
I know that it connects over into Caney and lower Jones Fork toward Wayland area. That all of that kind of runs together.
Yeah. We might try to figure that out. Maybe there's somebody out there that knows some old timer, some old miner. We got a lot of old miners around the area. Maybe one of them knows when that strip job happened.
Well, in the news story, it also talks about that they check mine shafts and stuff like that to hunt for him.
So there's a good possibility there was at least deep mines around there.
Yeah.
If there was mine shafts, but it also got surface mined at some point.
Yes.
Back up in the end of the holler.
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right. Back to the information that we have. It says that school in Knott County had been canceled that day. It was a Friday due to heavy snowfall that the area had received the day before. Kelly, of course, being a normal child, wanted to go play in the snow. Despite his mother telling him no repeatedly, he eventually wore her down, and she made sure he put on his boots and then zipped up his coat before he headed outside. The following is as close to a timeline as we can deduce at the moment. So, like I said, this was updated in 2024. So, this may be possibly
The most
like
correct information.
right, the most up to date information, but we have found all kinds of contradictory information on certain things. So, but this is what we're kind of going to go with, and then we'll look at what some others have said, some of that contradictory information, because we got some other sources we're wanting to
Yes.
kind of bring in about this too. So, this is the best timeline that we have, I guess. It says at 11 a.m. Kelly went outside to play in the snow. His mom, Judy, told him not to leave the front yard. Okay, right away, my mom told me not to leave the front yard all the time, and I didn't listen.
No, I didn't either.
So, yeah, 6-year-olds tend to just say, well, she don't see me. She ain't looking.
You're right. She's not looking. Is Mom looking out the window?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
she's gone.
She's
Okay.
not looking. She ain't paying attention. Off I go. On down the holler.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of a red flag right away is, well, kid could have just ran away.
Yeah.
Okay. But things get a lot stranger as we continue going down this timeline. Now, this says at 4 p.m., Judy checked on Kelly before she walked across the road to use her neighbor's phone. When she returned, Kelly was gone. And she thought he'd gone to a friend's house to watch television. Now, that's completely reasonable and possible because, like I said, Mom would say, stay in the front yard. And next thing you know, I'm down at my cousin's house, a few houses down, playing Nintendo.
He didn't come in, warm up, use the restroom.
Yeah, you think it would have been pretty cold. Like, I didn't like staying out in the cold that long.
Not particularly, I guess, to Mom's house, but he may have went to the neighbor's house and warmed up.
Right. Well, that's what she's saying. She thought maybe he went down to a friend's house to watch some TV because I guess he's probably known for doing that.
Yeah.
Like he'd probably done that several times. So she wasn't concerned about it. And that's the way it was. Like I said, I would wander off and end up down at my cousin's, and my mom wouldn't know right away where I was at. And if she got concerned enough, she would call. She would start calling people on the holler and find out where I was at.
Well, I guess back in 1982 and looking, when I was a kid, we didn't really have these things to worry about. If a kid went missing or anything like that, we assumed we were safe. They had the
there wasn't a lot of kids that went missing when we were back in those days. There wasn't a lot of kids going missing, at least like close to us in our area. You heard about it, like I said, when you finally got local news.
Yeah.
You started hearing about people trying to abduct kids or abducting kids, but it still wasn't in our area. It was away from here. We didn't think we had to worry about that. So I'm sure this little 6-year-old boy was probably just like us at that age, running around on the holler, carefree, not worried about too many dangers, And it's wintertime, so you didn't have to worry about too many varmints out trying to get you. Most of them were bedded down or hibernating, things of that nature. So, you're even a little bit more carefree in the wintertime, But the deep snow can also cause some treacherous dangers. It covers up, like you were saying, old mine shafts.
Yeah, on wheels.
Right. Yeah, you don't know they're there. Step on them, fall in. That was a danger. Yeah. And misjudging how steep something. I'm guilty of that. Yeah. Yeah. It didn't look like it was that steep the way the snow was laying. And then next thing I know, I'm rolling down the hill. So she thought that he'd gone down the road, went to a friend's house, was watching some TV. And then it says at 6 p.m., Judy had finished dinner. She'd prepared dinner. And she called for him to come back in the house. And, that was a common thing as well. We were out running around on the holler. And next thing you know, you heard echoing back and forth across the hills, Mom or Dad's voice.
But I just have a question about that time at 6 p.m. In the winter months, usually by 5 o'clock, it's dark outside.
That's correct. Yeah, this was February. So, it probably was dark at 6 o'clock in the evening. So, yeah, that's probably when, though, you would start kind of getting concerned about the kids. They weren't home yet, and it was dark or getting dark, and you start hollering for them.
Especially a 6-year-old child.
Yeah, and they don't answer. That's what it says, that he didn't respond. Now, this is where it diverts a little bit, because I know my mom would not have done this if this is what actually happened. Like I said, contradictory information depending on where you go and look it up and who you want to believe or talk to. It says she ate and then went down the road to that neighbor's house where she thought he was at. My mom would not have ate.
No. My mom's waiting there to prepare my plate, and I eat first.
Not only that, but she has prepared dinner and she has hollered for me loud and clear. So I should have heard her. And if I was inside somewhere at somebody else's house, she would call and she would find out where I was at.
She didn't have a phone.
And then she would say, well, tell him to get his butt home. Okay. And then if I was still not home by the time she was ready to plate the dinner, then she would come looking for me. She'd show up, I'm still sitting there playing Nintendo. And like, I called and they were supposed to tell you to come home. I was like, yeah, they did. My bad. And then I got whipped. But yeah, my mom would have never ate before she figured out where I was at. She would just come looking for me.
Yeah.
Because she's like, we're all ready to eat and you're not here. I'm coming after you, boy.
Bringing my Switch.
Yeah, that's the way it worked back then. But yeah, we didn't have these constant trackers that we have nowadays.
We know where our kids are.
Yeah, we know 24/7. We can track their every movement. We know what they're doing on their cell phone. We control them.
We invade their privacy.
No, but we had none of that. Our parents would just say, go outside. Leave me alone.
They didn't have any concerns.
No.
This stuff didn't happen. This didn't happen back then.
Right, yeah. And we've talked before on some other episodes about the very real dangers that exist in the hills of Knott County. But we were taught common sense about how to deal with those dangers, how to confront those dangers, how to get away from those dangers. Because our parents knew, and, if we had older siblings, they also were kind of a part of it too. They were handing down the knowledge they had, basically saying, hey, you're going to run around these hills. These are the things you need to know. These are the things you can come upon. These are the things that can hurt you. These are the things to stay away from. We were taught those things. And I mean, most kids were, I think just about all kids, me and all my cousins, like I said, we grew up running around in the hills. And yeah, as long as we told our parents, hey, we're going to run around over there up on the hill above the graveyard or something like that, they're just like, all right, be careful. Get home before dark. It's kind of that's how life was, It was a little more carefree. That's why nostalgia is such a great thing, because you get to look back on those days. But anyway, back to it. It says she ate, and then she went to get Kelly from the neighbor that she assumed he'd been at. But when she got there, they said they hadn't seen Kelly at all that day. So he never came down there. So at 11 o'clock, he goes outside. And at 4 o'clock, supposedly she checks on him before going over to the neighbors. And when she comes back from that, she notices he's gone. And they consider 6 o'clock to be the time that she kind of really knew that he was gone, because she went down there looking for him.
Yeah.
And he wasn't there. So Judy goes to her boyfriend's grandmother's house, which apparently is this neighbor right across the road that she went to at 4 o'clock. Apparently it is the same people from other information we've looked at.
Yeah.
That's what I've gathered, right?
That's what I've seen, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So she goes over to their house and asks to use the phone. And they tell her no, that she has to wait until midnight before she can use the phone.
Little sus.
They absolutely wouldn't let her use the phone. Her child is missing. She doesn't know where he is. He's not responding to her calls. He's not down the road at the neighbor's house with his little friend or whatever, like she thought he was. There's no sign of him. And they won't let her use the phone?
Very suspicious.
That makes absolutely no sense.
No. I mean, how can you tell someone they come in and say, my child's missing, I need to call the police?
Exactly. If a complete stranger showed up, and I'm sure that his mother, I'm sure she had to be distraught.
Oh, yeah.
If she has just realized, oh my God, he's nowhere to be seen. He's not answering my calls, hollering for him.
If mine doesn't answer me across the house, I'm up and
right.
Yeah, I'm like, something is wrong.
Yeah, you yell at our kids.
I can't imagine one being missing.
Yeah, you yell at our kids, and they usually jump to it and come right in. Come right to us, and that's kind of the way we were expected to be. We heard mom and dad yelling back up in the holler. Time to get home. I gotta go. Just run. Try to get home before they got a switch or got the belt off. That was the worst. So yeah, I still That is like the biggest question
Yeah.
in this. There's never been a satisfactory explanation.
Why she couldn't use the phone.
Yeah. Why is there not an explanation for this? And, supposedly the police, they did their investigation and
They couldn't get them to even answer that
right,
question.
they wouldn't even tell the police why. But somehow the police still, cleared them. I guess there was other evidence that backed up that they didn't have anything to do with it. Maybe. I don't know. But why was there never an explanation for that?
And they can't release anything because this is still considered an open case.
Right. They may have. They may
they
have
may
some
have.
information. They may have an explanation for why, but they can't release it until the investigation's closed or
Yeah,
something.
until they find him.
I don't know. That seems really weird. Though. You think that they would be releasing any information, but which I don't know. Maybe that doesn't have anything to do with. They completely
state laws prevent them from being able to share what needs to be shared.
I don't know, but that's the thing that I absolutely cannot wrap my head around. I mean, you want to talk about suspicious behavior?
Yeah.
I mean, come on. And I understand that probably not everybody up in Pine Tree Hollow had a phone in 1982. I knew several people on our holler that didn't have a phone. Back in the mid 80s or so. It wasn't a huge thing. I mean, of course you needed a phone to communicate and stuff, but I mean, some people just didn't see it. Phone and TV was usually, if it wasn't considered a necessity.
That was more of a luxury.
Right. So. Yeah, I guess it was still considered more of a luxury thing, at least in our area, because there's areas that still didn't have phone lines or cable lines or anything run.
Like I said in one of our podcasts before, I remember when they ran cable for television in my holler.
Exactly. So that would have been like late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
So, it's been a recent development that, we've had full access to the outside world over the last 40 years or so. But anyway, moving on. So she goes to the house. They wouldn't let her use the phone until after midnight. So as soon as it hit midnight, she calls the police. And so that's been 6 hours since she kind of realized, oh my God, he's not around here anywhere.
And so back at that time, 911 wasn't a thing in Knott County. Like to call 911 on your phone, you had to call, either the rescue squad or the police department or the fire department directly. You did not dial 911. There was no dispatch center, so you had to communicate with them through their phone line.
Right, exactly. But I was just thinking, I was like, well, it's probably a good 4 to 5 hours until midnight.
Yeah.
She gets there and they're like, nope, you can't use it until midnight. She had 4 to 5 hours to go to somebody else who probably did have a phone. Like I said, there may have not been a lot of people that had phone lines on Pine Tree Holler. They may have been one of the few, but I'm sure that somebody else there, she could have got somewhere else. But I mean, it was snowing. It was cold.
Yeah.
Maybe it was just too much of an ordeal for her to trek to the nearest place with a phone. It was just worth waiting the 4 to 5 hours till she could use their phone.
Or maybe it could have, I don't know why they wouldn't allow a long distance charge, but people are weird that way. And it could have been that, they had to contact the Hazard Police Department the state police department was located in Hazard, Kentucky. So
right,
could have been long distance.
Like, back then you had to pay extra for long distance. Like if they didn't live within your little county or whatever.
But being that it's an emergency, it's still I would have been like, make the call.
Yeah, it's just so perplexing. That's the only word that comes to mind. I cannot. It just makes no sense that they would not let her use the phone until midnight. Now, maybe was there some kind of thing that like long distance was free after midnight or something back in those days? Yeah. I mean, maybe that is the explanation. But man,
that's not a good explanation.
Right, that's not a good explanation.
Yeah, to make an emergency phone call.
Yeah, I mean, your kid's missing. Yeah, I'm gonna be like, dude, I don't care.
So
how much it costs. Go ahead and make the call.
It's suspicious that she said that and they made her wait till midnight. It's suspicious that they would say, you can't make a phone call till midnight. So there you're like, who's telling the truth?
And she's dating her grandson. Okay, this is the boyfriend's grandmother.
Yeah.
That's her house. I'm assuming it's her. She's in charge over there, and she's the one that told her no.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is the woman and the kid that could be like your, step grandson, basically, if they were to get married or something.
I
But
wonder,
it seems like they should have had some kind of connection with him, since they'd been living there.
or was, is there part of the story missing? Did she like intentionally be like, oh no, you're not using that phone for no reason? Or was it like, no, let's see if he shows up. Let's wait
Right.
and, he may come from one of the other neighbors' houses.
Right. Yeah, this is a grandma
Yeah.
in the 80s. So I'm sure she probably had youngins that ran around in the hills until after dark. So she very well could have been like,
Yeah.
well, let's just wait and see,
Right. So we don't have a direct.
Once it starts getting dark, he'll come back on.
What was the demeanor? Was it, no, you're not using this phone to make any phone calls? Or was it, let's wait and see where he comes from?
But we don't have any kind of
right. There's no detail.
Yeah, we don't have any kind of transcripts about the interviews.
So that's just speculation.
We don't really know any of that. How the state police went about clearing her and all this.
But how the stories are, that we're using for sources are stating it. We don't have a clear picture of what was actually said. Just no, she can't use the phone.
Yeah, it's just baffling to me. I can't imagine a good explanation for why you wouldn't let somebody call the police because they're worried about their kid missing. Just seems strange. So the Knott County Rescue Squad was notified, and they immediately came to the area and began searching. And apparently they assumed that he'd probably just wandered away from home, and he'd probably be located pretty quick. He's only 6, so he probably didn't wander too far. So they just did a general search and assumed that they were going to find him. But they never did. They never did locate him. The Kentucky State Police was contacted, and the first officer from the state police arrived on the scene at 3 a.m. And then I think they waited till daylight to actually begin the police to start their search. They really started pushing. Like, the rescue squad was already out there. They'd been looking around close by, thinking he'd just kind of wandered away from the house, and they hadn't found him yet. So as soon as dawn hit, I guess they were able to get more officers up there, and they really started pushing, looking for him.
Yeah.
And it says, thanks to increasingly severe weather and the night shift being scantily staffed, the official police search didn't begin until dawn. So it was a pretty bad snowstorm, apparently. So that doesn't bode well for
search and rescue.
Yeah, the
little boy either.
The idea of finding evidence of what might have happened or where he may have gone, because his footsteps and stuff in the snow
are covered,
and maybe any tire tracks or anything. All of that is going to be covered.
Yeah.
By the snow. They wouldn't even found it. But it says that they over the next few weeks, police and search dogs looked in water wells, creeks, and the nearby abandoned mines. They even checked under porches and in sheds and storage buildings. So they did a pretty thorough search of Pine Tree Hollow, and they didn't find anything. I mean, nothing.
And they should have found something, because being so cold, say that he had passed away, the body's not going to decompose in cold. I hate to go that way, but
right. Yeah. I mean,
they would have found something. They should have found a shoe. They should have found clothing.
Yeah. If it had been some kind of an attack by like an animal, like a coyote or something like that, there would have been evidence of that.
Yeah. They don't eat shoes. They don't
eat the shoes. They don't eat the bones. Usually they might drag the bones around, but they don't eat them. I don't think.
They don't eat clothing.
Yeah. So. Yeah. They would have found his shoes, and she said she put boots on him. They probably would have found pieces of his raincoat scattered around. I mean, there would have been evidence of that. But like we said, snowstorm. So maybe they didn't see it. But I'm sure there's been more than just that initial search.
And they searched for weeks.
Yeah, this was weeks. So maybe the snow melted.
Yeah.
And cleared up, and I don't know.
Because it doesn't really get warm till at least mid-March.
Right. But I mean, it could have been one of those things, we got a big snowstorm, but then it got a little bit warm. So over the course of 5 or 6 days, the snow was gone. So that could have happened. I don't know. I've not looked at the almanac or whatever to see what happened in those following weeks, maybe the snow got worse. Maybe it got even deeper. Maybe it impeded their search. I don't know. It doesn't really go into that detail. Now we get into who may have done it, I guess, because it says there was a grand jury investigation that was brought up and looked at Kelly's mother, Judy. They were looking at her. They were thinking, because that's kind of what happens usually. It's
the
a
last
family.
person that seen you, they have to go there.
Well, no, I'm just saying that usually it's family.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's because she was with her boyfriend. She wasn't with the boy's father. So there is speculation that the father or the mother
is responsible,
could be involved.
Yeah.
There was speculation about that. But now the grand jury, they didn't feel that there was sufficient evidence suggesting that Judy had done anything to her son. So, and like I said, there was no evidence. That's what makes this case so frustrating is there's no evidence. There's no sign whatsoever. There's just possibilities of what happened to this kid. And now this is interesting because this may be why they looked at Judy. It says at one point, Judy's own sister told law enforcement that Judy had killed Kelly and she had helped her do it. And obviously this was never proven, but I mean, she straight up confessed.
Yeah.
But there's no details about, her saying how they did it or where they put him or anything like that. So I don't know why she would say that.
And then she never spoke to her sister again.
But it goes on to say that let's not forget that the area that they were living in at the time when he disappeared had its fair share of residents with criminal records. So this holler was known to have criminals, I guess. It doesn't specify what kind of criminals. It doesn't say if, these are like petty theft guys or, stole somebody's horse. It just says criminal records.
Right. Was drugs a contributing factor? That's something.
Well, we didn't have the big drug epidemic back in those days, but I mean, there was some drug stuff going on. I'm sure back in '82. So this little boy, though, he had siblings. Judy's parents had custody of them because. So this is interesting as well. They had custody of her other kids because Judy suffered from epilepsy and she struggled to take care of all of her kids. So the only ones that she was allowed to keep was Kelly, and her other kids were living with her mom and dad. So I guess they got custody of her other kids before she had Kelly.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was pregnant with him, so that's why she had Kelly. But her parents had her other kids, and I guess they were their legal guardians.
I'm not sure about the extent of her epilepsy, but you can be passed out for 15 to maybe 30 minutes at a time and not remember anything that happened before you passed out. So that could be a contributing factor. More information that wasn't gathered.
Right.
Her
Yeah.
illness.
Like how sick was she with this epilepsy thing? Like how big of a deal was it? Like obviously it was a pretty big deal because she had her kids taken away. She wasn't able to take care of them because she had epilepsy. How was she controlling it? Was there medication she was taking? Could she have possibly seen her son but doesn't remember seeing him? I don't know. It's just so frustrating looking at all this and not being able to find the answers no matter where you look.
Yeah, I would like to know the extent of her illness. Was she forgetful? Was that something that
was that
daily?
part of her illness? So also Kelly's aunt says it's unclear if this is the same aunt that earlier implicated herself as helping Judy kill Kelly. But one of his aunts apparently told Kelly's sister that she would be leaving behind a letter implying heavily that it would contain information about Kelly. Now that makes me think that maybe this is the same aunt that claimed to have helped kill the boy. But obviously she never wrote the letter, so maybe she was making it all up to begin with. Because it sounded like maybe she was going to write a confession letter and then on her deathbed everybody would hear the truth or whatever. But I guess it never happened, so we don't know if any of that is valid at all.
Yeah.
But she goes in and straight up confesses, and then for whatever reason they're like, no, that ain't what happened. Now a neighbor supposedly saw a green car in the area earlier in the day. So you're talking about this holler being all twisty and windy, and apparently it's snowing
Yeah.
quite a bit. So a green car just running around on Pine Tree Hollow, that does seem a little suspicious.
Yeah, to get off the, probably open road because the side roads can get pretty dangerous. And if you're not familiar with this area and trying to trek around in the snow, you're not going to make it far.
Right.
If you,
Yeah, that's the way it is across most of Knott County. If you're not familiar with the road, you better drive very slow because there's a lot of just sudden turns and you might end up in a creek.
yeah,
It's very easy to do, especially if it's snowing. So we have this green car, so that brings up the possibility of abduction.
yeah,
Possibly somebody pulled up, seen this 6-year-old boy just standing there by himself in the yard, nobody around, so they just grabbed him and took off. But that seems a little odd.
yeah. A big green car, snow covered ground. It's going to
Yeah,
be obvious. It's going to be obvious. And just one neighbor seen it.
yeah. I mean, you're obviously going to be seen, which they were.
But if she was looking out the window constantly at him playing in the yard, she would have seen tire tracks, which it snowed again, covered those up. So a strange car doesn't wander off the well beaten path into a snow covered holler
Not usually, no.
if you're not familiar with the area.
And I could, if it wasn't for the whole it's snowing, bad enough for them to call off school. 1982, it had to snow pretty good for them to call
Yeah.
off school back then because they'd just barrel them buses right through it. They didn't care. But yeah, I don't see why a green car would just be out cruising up in hollows looking for kids to abduct.
Yeah.
That just seems too weird. Now we did run across some information that said something about the boy's father
Yeah. Drove a green car.
drove a green car. So that adds another little bit of suspicion to the story. Like I said, they had these theories about, the mother could have possibly done it. And here's something saying, well, maybe the father abducted him.
Yeah.
And we've run across other articles. There's been reports of, well, they have these age progression photographs of Kelly that they've done several times throughout the years. And the most recent one, I'm not sure when it was done, but I think he's supposed to be 35 in the photo that's showing him. And he has like a scar on his lip because he had like a cleft palate. Yeah.
He'd had surgery done.
Yeah. So I mean, that's usually a pretty unique feature.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be difficult to spot somebody that could possibly be him. So there's been several reports. There's one out of Arkansas, I think, and then there's one out of Florida. And there was even a report that a woman who worked at a school.
His teacher.
Well, it was his teacher.
History.
Okay, so his teacher at whatever school he attended here in Knott County.
I'm gonna assume it was Jones Fork.
Think so. Yeah, probably. Yeah, I'd say it was Jones Fork. So his teacher at Jones Fork or wherever gets a call from a school in Florida requesting Kelly's records. But then all those records about those requests and whether or not they were sent were all destroyed in a fire. Yeah. So now we don't have any of that information. Can't check on that to see if that's true or not.
Right. See if they sent those.
But I mean, I would tend to believe this woman. I mean, why would she, several years after the fact, just make up, oh yeah, some school called asking for that missing boy's information. So that seems very, very strange.
And of course, our police officers followed up on all of these claims.
Yeah, that's the thing is,
and
it's not like none of this was investigated. The cops were all over this. They checked into all this stuff, but it never went anywhere. Like none of it ever added up. It's one of the strangest. This is literally somebody who just disappeared off the face of the earth.
And there was also a report a little girl had called the mom and said that she had Kelly in class. And then the little girl's mom got on the phone and said she has no idea what she's talking about and hung up. And I think that they went on to investigate that as well. And it was, there was nothing to it.
Like the little girl just made it up or something.
And I think the family had written letters to all the schools in Arkansas to ask if he was enrolled there. And they got nothing back. No information.
So that was in Arkansas. So this little girl from Arkansas called the mom and was like, hey, I'm in class with your son Kelly.
Yeah.
And then the mom gets on the phone and says, "No, she's not. She's
Yeah. The
she's
little
making
girl's
it up."
mom is like, no, she's making this up. She has no idea what she's talking about.
That's very, very strange.
Yeah.
Just like the Florida thing. I mean, is it possible his father abducted him, took him to Florida?
There was a report that I read. So there was another guy possibly that could have been his biological father. Judy denied that. She said, there's no way. That's not possible at all. And he was from Florida.
Oh, so there was another guy that could have possibly been his father.
Yeah.
There was some kind of question that maybe who Judy said was Kelly's father was not his father.
And apparently she had just moved back from Florida to Knott County.
So she had been living in Florida. Man, that just gets stranger and stranger. A lot of Florida connection going on here.
Yeah.
Huh. I wonder what that's all about. But like I said, the police have looked into all this stuff. It's not like this is hidden, newly discovered information or anything. This is stuff that has come about, and the police who are in charge of the case of Kelly Hollan Jr. They've looked into all this. They've tried to find this boy. They've took any lead that's come their way, and it just gets more confusing.
And that's why they feel so beat down at a dead end.
Yeah, it's been 43 years since this happened, and there's just no explanation, no closure, no anything at all. Especially for his mom. I know that we were talking about how the grand jury looked into a case that possibly she was somehow involved in Kelly's disappearance, but that all fell apart because there wasn't enough evidence.
The police officers want to share the answers to a lot of these questions, but they can't because they can't close the case.
Right.
So they can't share that information
Yeah.
with us.
Yeah, that's what we said earlier. It's still an open case. There might be answers to some of these questions we're bringing up. They just can't really share them or anything.
Yeah.
But I wanted to play this. This is a clip. It's a news story that Steve Hensley with WYMT. I'm sure most of our listeners out there probably know Steve Hensley and WYMT. So he did this story back in 2000, and it's about Kelly. And he interviews Kelly's mom, Judy. So I wanted to play it so everybody can hear in her own words and maybe a better explanation of the story. I know we tend to ramble, but we've just been, ever since we started looking into this, it's just been so convoluted and so
many
confusing
scenarios that it could be.
Right. And it's hard to find any kind of answers. So I'm going to play this clip right here.
On February 12th, 1982, in the Pine Tree Hollow area of Knott County, Judy Moore let her 6-year-old son Kelly go outside and play, and he hasn't been seen since. At first, Moore says she assumed Kelly had walked to a friend's house to watch TV. It was a Friday night, and the Dukes of Hazzard was on. But later, when she went to bring her son home, nobody at the friend's house had seen him. Moore believes her son was kidnapped and may still be alive.
So I really believe he's still out there. I really do. And I always believed it until proven otherwise.
A few years after his disappearance, Mountain News profiled the case. Police said at the time they never found any sign of Hollan around his home.
He searched in here at least 3 times I can recall, and there was never no evidence found of the child. Nothing whatsoever.
Police have questioned Judy Moore, and she denies having any involvement in her son's disappearance.
He was just like a little angel. Why would I want to do anything to him?
These are age progression images of what Kelly Hollan might have looked like growing up. He would now be 32 years old.
If he's out there somewhere, I wished he would let me know. I don't want to disrupt his life. I just want to know my son's alive and let him know that I do love him.
Moore says she still thinks about her son all the time, but certain months are more difficult than others.
November to February is the hardest. November, his birthday, then Christmas, then New Year's, and then his disappearance date. Like it's all coming again.
Kelly Hollan had blue eyes, a scar on his upper lip, and his speech was impaired. Steve Hensley, WYMT Mountain News.
Okay, so there you go. That's a little clip that of a report that Steve Hensley did back in 2008. Now, in that video, you hear him say the age progression photos. I was just talking about that they have on several occasions done these age progression photos, And like I said, I'm pretty sure the last one they done, he was supposed to be like 35. But in that interview, Steve Hensley says that Kelly would now be 32 years old. That was 2008. So now here we are, 2025. He would be 49 years old. And, maybe we can get those photos.
And definitely share those on TikTok and get that out there.
Yeah, maybe put those together and put them up on TikTok. Maybe tell the story a little bit. This boy's been missing since 1982, and this is what he may look like. It's a very, very strange story. I still don't know what to think about it. Every time I would get a bit of information and think I knew kind of where it was leading, it didn't go anywhere. And I would end up searching around to find more information. Yeah. I mean, you've been reading articles about this for 2 days now.
Well, and a lot, you said contradict themselves. Like someone would say he went missing on February the 13th, and that was a Saturday. So he actually went missing.
Right, and the whole thing was
Friday because he missed school.
Yeah, the whole thing was he missed school. It was snowing and school was called off. And I think that I just misread that on the Unsolved Appalachia site. February 12th but the search didn't really begin for him until February 13th, the next morning. So I guess that's how they were labeling it, because they had the wrong date, February 13th instead of February 12th, 1982. But I encourage everybody out there to look into this, and if anybody out there at all might possibly know anything about this case, about Kelly, about what may have happened to him, then of course you are encouraged to call the Kentucky State Police.
Yeah, post 13.
I call up the Hazard State Police post there and let them know anything that you might know that could help bring some closure to this case. I know it's a long shot, it really is, and this is the kind of story that we used to sit around and watch on Unsolved Mysteries.
Yeah,
back in the day. Late 80s, early 90s. That was a favorite thing to do, is sit there and watch Unsolved Mysteries. And this is a great Unsolved Mysteries, but I don't think they ever had it on Unsolved Mysteries.
I've never seen it.
Yeah, I mean, digging around looking for information, I never ran across that it was featured on any kind of.
I feel like it just didn't get enough publicity there,
Yeah, like I said, we didn't have a TV station, close by TV station, I don't think.
Right, but
back in 1982.
Still yet years later, as things progressed,
Yeah, we had a newspaper, I think. I think the Troublesome Creek Times was around 1982. So I'm sure there may have been an article in there, but that's probably about it as far as media attention. There was probably an article in the local newspaper.
So, yeah, but it went from 82 till 2008 for a lot of people really heard about this story.
Right, exactly. Like the story there that we just played from Steve Hensley. That's why there's not really any information, is because, like I said, media attention. Nobody really talked about it. Like, there may have been an article in the local newspaper, but beyond that, there's nothing. So there's no way to trace back to see if there was any other interviews done with other neighbors. I'm sure that if WYMT had been there back in those days, they would have been interviewing all of Pine Tree Holler, but I don't think anything like that was done. So you don't have hardly anything to go on. And man, I pray that one day they're able to solve this case. We can finally find out what happened to Kelly. But
and I know it'll be a relief to his mom, but it'll also be a relief to the Kentucky State Police, because again, they're silenced because they can't release that information to anyone, because it may mess up the investigation.
Right. We need to give credit where credit is due. The police have worked hard on this, but like I said, there's just so little to go on. And who knows if we'll ever get an answer. But like I said, I really hope and pray that they do.
Yeah.
This is just a heartbreaking story. This little boy just vanishing. Not even a trace to go on. Nothing at all to cling to try to find him. He's gone. So the only other bit of information we've been able to find was an article wrote in, let's see, it was wrote in 2010. And
but the interview was conducted in December.
In December of 2009. But yeah, the article came out in 2010. and it's an article by the Lexington Herald Leader.
Actually, out of everything, I think this article gives a lot more information and details.
Yeah, it kind of gives a lot of the same information, but it clarifies some things, and it has a little bit of different information.
Yeah, we have comments from officers that work the case, close family members. Kind of gives a rundown of what the relationship was with Kelly and the mom's boyfriend, and how what the relationship was with Judy and her boyfriend.
Yeah, it does have a little more information, direct quotes from some people involved. It talks about Kelly's sister, who was only 10 when he disappeared, but she's the one who told the sheriff that her mother's sister, who had recently died, might have left behind a letter with some information about the missing boy.
And she reported this back in December of 2009.
Yeah. From everything we've looked at, I guess nothing ever came of that. They never found the letter.
They never found a letter.
But I guess she claimed that her aunt had told her that.
And she was going to leave a letter about exactly what happened.
Okay, so now we have a Kentucky State Police Lieutenant, Lieutenant Webb, who worked in Knott County, and he was on the case from the beginning and investigated it for years. So he put a lot of his life into looking into this case and trying to solve this case. He said, "I've had a lot of cases, and in all my career, that's the case that bothers me the most. I followed every lead, and it hasn't added up since day one." And then it talks about how out of the cases listed for Kentucky with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, Kelly's is one of only two categorized as a non-family abduction. So that's what I was talking about earlier, that a lot of times, they look at the family immediately because most of the time it's somebody in the family has abducted him.
And they weren't sure that the classification was even valid.
Yeah, they don't know what happened to him. There have been many rumors and theories. Of course, they talk about the mother, the grand jury looking at information and possibly indicting her, but there wasn't enough evidence. And she feels that they've kind of been looking at her as the suspect for all these years.
And she doesn't understand why.
Yeah, she doesn't understand why. She talked about that in that WYMT clip we played.
And it is kind of hard to, you don't want to think that a mother would harm their child.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you never want to think that, but it happens. Unfortunately, you see it a lot. There's plenty of news stories that have gotten national attention of parents who have harmed their children, unfortunately. And I don't know if that's the case with this one or not. The mother seems legitimately distraught over this. So it is hard to say that she might have something to do with it, but you never know. I mean, you really don't. So the rest of this article, it goes through the timeline like I did earlier. His mom talks about how when she realized he was missing, she went to the neighbor's house, and when they said that they hadn't seen him, that she was frantic and was going everywhere. And when she couldn't find Kelly, she went to the boyfriend's grandmother's house, and she wasn't allowed to use the phone.
Yeah, she said no one would let me use the phone until midnight.
Just a baffling. I still can't figure that out. But she was finally able to call the police. All right, here's where it talks about Moore's parents had custody of her other two children, Margaret and Robert Hollan. Those are her other two children, Margaret and Robert. So she only had two other children. And Margaret is the one who said her aunt might possibly write that letter. So Robert, at the time that this article was made, was 35. And he said that he remembers hearing his grandfather on the phone. He said that his grandparents thought that if they'd had custody of Kelly, he wouldn't have disappeared. I told you, we should have taken him too, Robert said his grandfather shouted
at Judy.
So they were obviously upset. They had a grandson that was now missing, and they were upset. They were thinking they should have had him too, that it was somehow her fault that he was gone, and if they'd had custody, this wouldn't have happened. So that makes you wonder, did they know something about Judy, her condition or something, maybe?
Yeah.
That they were worried that this might happen. And then it goes on to say that over the next few weeks, police dug up the hollow. They dragged wells and creeks, looked in abandoned mines, looked under houses, but found no sign of Kelly. Tips that led nowhere. The years since his disappearance have been filled with strange leads. And yeah, this is where it's talking about the phone call from the little girl in Arkansas that you mentioned earlier. And there's even, there's more information in here about more sightings. I guess Judy's sister claims she saw a picture of a gospel singer who looked like Kelly.
I wonder if that's the same sister that said she helped kill her or kill Kelly.
I don't know.
So it doesn't say.
I don't think so. I don't know if they would be on speaking terms after saying something like that.
Right.
But even if they were, if she's, been claiming that they killed Kelly.
Yeah, I wonder how many siblings that Judy had.
Yeah, I don't know. Wasn't able to determine that. But she obviously had one sister, possibly two, because this may have been the other sister. This may have been after that first one passed. Who knows? But they contacted this gospel group because she thought that this singer looked like Kelly. And they looked into it, and it wasn't him. And of course, this also contains the information about the teacher getting a request from a Florida school. And like I said, all you have now is her testimony that this happened because all those records are gone.
Yeah, they were lost in a fire.
Yeah, fire took them out. So, and that's a shame because it'd be nice to have that. Because if somebody called,
right, you have to document all of that.
Right, she would have documented that they had requested those files, and they probably would have had some kind of documentation about whether or not they sent those files.
Right, what school they were sent to.
Yeah, what school they went to. So that's a shame that those are gone. And apparently, at one point, this is kind of going back to what you said about the police not being able to release everything that they have. Judy actually did request Kelly's case file back in 2000, but she was denied by the Kentucky State Police and the Attorney General at the time on the grounds that the case was still open. And Judy said that every time I try to find something out, I'm the one in the dark. So did the boy's father know? That's the question they ask here.
Yeah.
And apparently Judy actually suspects that Kelly's father, Bobby Hollan, who passed away several years ago, and that's several years before this article. So it's been probably 20 years or so now. But she always suspected that he had kidnapped Kelly or knew something about his disappearance because he drove a green car.
I would have magically just showed up on his doorstep hunting for my kid with or without police officers.
Yeah. I think that's what most mothers would have done.
Yeah.
If they suspected that, they would have just showed up. Hey, where's my kid?
There's no ocean big enough to keep me fine.
Exactly.
I will walk on water to get where they're at.
So yeah, he drove a green car, and we were talking earlier about the green car that was seen, and that it could have been him.
It could have.
Maybe. And Judy, that's apparently what the mother thinks. She thinks that he did it, but like I said, it just seems very likely.
And I would assume the police followed up with that as well.
Yeah, I'm sure they've looked through all this. Obviously, like she said, can't get all that information because it's still an open case.
If they abducted him, say his dad did, they knew what they were doing and how to keep this case open.
That was a kind of a perfect abduction if that's what happened, because only one neighbor saw the car, and somehow they got up there, grabbed the kid, and got out.
In a snowstorm.
Up a little tiny winding holler. That's incredible if they
and
pulled
never
that
got
off.
Stuck once.
Yeah. Never went flying off the road into the creek.
Yeah. Because Arkansas, you don't see a lot of snow.
Yeah. They probably didn't have their snow tires, their studs on their car. But his father, Bobby Hollan, has sisters, and they vehemently deny that Bobby had anything to do with Kelly's disappearance. Of course, he's gone, so you can't really get his side of the story. I'm sure the cops have talked to him. I'm sure there's an interview that's probably part of the information they can't release of them interviewing Bobby Hollan and finding out about where he may have been during that time and
what his alibi was.
Yeah. So the mother, Judy, apparently, she has completely cooperated with the police throughout this entire thing. So she hasn't tried to be shady or anything. So that's a good sign on her side. But she has taken a lie detector test. I guess that she passed the lie detector test.
She did hypnosis.
Yeah, they took her back up in the holler numerous times and had her just, kind of lead them around and where the boy might have been, trying to help jog her memory or chase any possible new leads.
I think she had contacted a medium, a couple of television show hosts to try and get this out into the open.
Yeah, so I mean, she seems like pretty desperate, because she's calling it mediums, and I don't know how many people believe in mediums. I mean, I kind of I kind of believe some of it. Like there's some out there that seem pretty legit. You have to be getting pretty desperate. You're calling up mediums and you're calling up talk show hosts just trying to get the story out there. Yeah, it's such a strange case. And I mean, we could probably just keep on talking for hours and hours about it. But I definitely, I think it's good to talk about these things.
We may reveal something that was missed.
Yeah.
Just having this conversation.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe. I think it's good to talk about these things. This kid that's been missing for all these years, and there's probably not much hope of him being found. You know, if you want to be honest about it. Unfortunately, it's probably highly unlikely that we'll get all the answers, but there is that little shred of hope, and I wanna take that little shred, and I wanna hope and pray with everyone out there that this case comes to some kind of resolution, that we find out.
I would like to see his mom get closure, our community get closure, our officers to get closure.
Right? Yeah. I mean, as far as I know, this is the only like little kid.
Yeah, in Knott County.
In Knott County that's actually registered as missing. So it's really hard, you know, when it's a kid,
Right.
no matter what it is, because kids are innocent, man. They don't deserve to have anything happen to them. It's possible that this kid wandered off, fell in a mine shaft. I know they checked them, but maybe they missed one.
These mountains are so big.
Yeah, and I mean, you
Yeah.
hear stories about that. You know, that people literally do walk around in the mountains sometimes and fall in mine shafts.
Yeah.
Like it's happened on several occasions. People have died. People have been rescued from them, but it happens. It's one of those unseen dangers that snow piled up, wouldn't even be able to tell it. Step right on it and fall in.
So years after this article here, the 2010, 2009, 2010 article, the police returned back to the home, which had been torn down, but the porch was still there, and they ended up busting the porch up and digging through the debris because they had gotten a lead that maybe he had been buried in the concrete porch.
Under the concrete porch.
Yes.
or in the concrete porch.
Yeah. And then there was another lead that he was buried around an abandoned barn close to the home. And so they ended up excavating that area and didn't find anything either. And they said that by that point, there probably would be nothing, you know, at all. Decomposition would have taken everything, clothing, any bones or anything like that. So really wasn't nothing to go looking for. But they looked and there was nothing there. And that's the last known lead.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the last time they were able to follow anything.
Yeah.
There's not been anything for all these years, 15 years. It's sad, man. But we hope that you've enjoyed hearing the story of Kelly Hollan Jr. Like I said, I really hope and pray that something happens with this case and they're able to get some kind of closure with it. I really do.
And we're going to share his photographs and information on how you can contact the Kentucky State Police Post 13 if you have any information.
I will. We'll get those pictures up, those age progression photos and stuff. We'll put those up
on our TikTok, not.so.quiet on TikTok.
Not.so.quiet.
Yeah.
You can look that up on TikTok.
Or you can just type in Appalachia Not So Quiet.
Appalachia Not So Quiet. That's what we are. We're Appalachia and we're not so quiet. All right. So I want to just go through once again. Everybody check out unsolvedappalachia.org. It's very interesting. You can see all these missing persons from all over Appalachia. Check out the latest article about this story that was published in the Lexington Herald Leader back in 2010. And I also encourage everybody to look up Steve Hensley with WYMT. And they have that interview that we played earlier of Kelly's mom, Judy. Steve did a great interview with her, and it gives a good little background of the story. So everybody go check that out.
And if you see any of our local police, state, county, city, just give those guys a thank you for everything that they do because their job is tough.
Absolutely.
And events like this make it even tougher on those guys.
Yeah, don't flip them the bird. Give them a thumbs up.
Yeah.
They're doing a good job.
Give them a pat on the back.
Right. Yeah, we don't need to be...
Appreciate them for everything that they do because they take this home with them.
Yeah, we really need to appreciate our law enforcement. They go through a lot, man. And
they see things that shouldn't be seen.
Yeah. And they work hard to try to protect us and try to help families like they've tried to help Judy Moore deal with the disappearance of her son. All right. I think we're going to end it there. We've recorded plenty of content about Kelly Hollan Jr. So I want to thank everybody out there. This has been a fantastic experience doing this podcast thing. I really like doing it. I really like sitting here and having these conversations with my lovely wife. Like I said, this is kind of what we do anyway. So we thought it'd be fun to record it. But we're having a lot of fun doing it. It seems a lot of people are having fun listening. So keep listening, and we'll keep trying to make it interesting. Our next episode is going to air on Friday. Yes, Friday.
No Niche Friday.
We'll get into that on Friday. What is wrong with that? Okay, everybody. I'm Hillbilly Phantom.
I'm Appalachian Shade.
And we'll see you on the next episode of Appalachian Not So Quiet. Listen to us here on Spotify, Apple Podcast,
Amazon Music,
and iHeart Radio. Appalachia Not So Quiet. We'll see you next time.
See ya.